Hi, I'm Brent Sinclair and welcome to Knight Frank Newcastle's Commercial Property Update. This month I'm joined by former Newcastle Lord Mayor and the region's largest private developer, Jeff McCloy, who's here to discuss his current projects, his outlook for the region and the challenges being faced in the property development business. Thanks for joining us today, Jeff.
Thank you, Brent. I'm not sure if you're saying I'm overweight or something, Brent, the largest. We haven't started off too well, but we'll improve from here.
Now, Jeff, the McCloy Group is delivering nearly 6,000 new home sites in over 15 residential communities in the Hunter, New England and Northern Rivers areas, not to mention, and that's over $500 million in infrastructure spend, not to mention other major projects in residential and non-residential sectors of the market. Can you tell us a little bit about the McCloy Group and some of the projects that you're involved with, both past and present?
Well, we started off as a building contractor from Belmont, and we progressed from there. Building contracting is a very difficult industry and with high risk and small margins, and I always look to do something else which is allied to building and creating things, and of course property development was well in line. So we started on that many years ago, and grew so quickly, I suppose, and slowly to me, but we stopped building a number of years ago and just concentrated now on property development.
Yeah, sure. And some of those projects that you're currently involved with at the moment, or maybe just looking back in the past, what's some of your headline projects that some would recognise around the region?
Well, in property development, we built Gill's Tavern and the Gill's Shopping Centre. That was probably our first major introduction into property. But in building days, of course, everyone would know the John Hunter Hospital, and we built that in record time. It was a very successful project with in large a very happy team of people on the project, and I still look back fondly at that, but I couldn't build one again.
And what about your project, your residential communities? Can you run us through just briefly some of those projects that you've got going at the moment?
Yeah, we're in all sorts of places, Wyee, Taralva, Rutherford, Lochinvar. We've got two at Madawi, one hasn't started yet, Raymond Terrace, Tamworth, Armidale. We're all over the place.
Yeah.
We're selective about what we do. We don't need to be the biggest, but we've got a niche market which we fitted into, and we think we're pretty good at what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the property industry in Australia has faced several hurdles in recent times. We've had tightening of bank lending, we've had a federal election with the threat of negative changes to capital gains and negative gearing policies. We've also had a softening residential market. What impact has this had on your business, and what's your outlook for the region moving forward?
Well, it's property. You have to take a long-term view to property. It comes in cycles which are fairly well known, theoretically in the order of 7 years. If you don't take a long-term view and you're thinking to just make instant profits, you're unlikely to be able to do so. The last election, I think most businesses and people I've spoke to were in holdover mode and weren't sure what was going to happen if the Labor policies got in, but certainly we were prepared to be much quieter than we now propose to be, as I think there's a flavour of many other businesses. So it's a long-term view. The threat of a negative gearing removal, the threat of increase in taxation to capital gains tax are all a substantial negative to the industry, and it would have driven rent prices up and it would have slowed the whole industry down. Fortunately for many Australians, and it's a political thing to say, I know, but it's regarding the property industry, that didn't happen, and there's now some buoyancy. We've noticed in our sales, 2 months before the election, it really quite dried up. After the election now, we're selling land as we used to. So
Great.
That's about a summary.
And your outlook for the region, how are we placed for the next 2 to 3 years?
Look, it's really good. The Hunter Valley is growing, Newcastle's growing. I drove through the country yesterday to Maitland and such, and the activity up there is fantastic. There is no doubt that infrastructure, the that road that went out there to the west has been a great boon for this region. Always positive about it. It's a great place to live, and the more people we do get here, the more independent we can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Great. Now, Jeff, over 50 years experience in a high risk, high reward industry, how have you managed not only to survive, but to grow your business at scale?
Well, the first thing in real estate is you have to buy properly. If you pay too much, you're behind the 8 ball right from day one. Mm-hmm. So carefully considering your purchase is extremely important, but also in your purchase to try and see something where you can add value. Normal things when you're buying a house, if you can add value by renovating it, large property, if you can see different yields, you always have to look for that little quirky thing that sometimes develops in a project, and that's what we certainly do. But we don't see ourselves as risk takers in the such, because we do take the long-term view.
Yeah, sure. And when we spoke last week, we spoke that your approach is looking at each project in isolation as its own.
We make each project stand on its own feet in terms of the funding and its risk profile. We don't put everything in a hat and risk, so we make every project stand on its own feet and be accountable for itself. That way you can accelerate, you can bring them back, you've got all sorts of levers to proceed now, not proceed now, how you price it, how you don't price it, how much you market, how much you don't market. There are a lot of levers in this business, and you need to be able to use them all.
Sure, and having a good team as well, and a good philosophy in business.
Everything's about team. If you haven't got a good team and a dedicated team of people, you're not in business.
Now, the McCloy Group continues to build a diverse property portfolio. What is next for the group?
I can't tell you. We have a few major projects we're seriously looking at now. They're very, very complex. It takes some time. They're very large, but we're doing due diligence as we speak.
Sure. And in terms of, I suppose, looking at some of the projects that you are talking about retirement villages, you're working into the retirement villages.
We've started a retirement village arm along with John Stevens, another great developer from the Central Coast. Very easy to work with John. We sit in a room, we discuss things, make a decision and move on. So I think we've got quite a number of retirement villages to start. It's a market which is increasing. If you look at the demographics in Australia, we're very confident about that, but we've spent 2 years of work to get to where we are now. So the homework is immense. You have to do your homework. You have to be prepared properly, and we are. Sure.
And just on that, whereabouts are you looking at for retirement village? Where are the ones that you've got active at the moment?
Well, we're at Medowie, we're at Rutherford, we've got an agreement in principle with Newcastle Golf Course. We're in negotiations with another golf course. We've got John Stevens' golf course development, of course, with the retirement village. We're looking at YE as well. So anywhere where we're holding real estate for subdivisions, we're looking to put retirement villages.
Sure. And what about Newcastle City? Are you looking much around the city?
No. We've got rid of most of our holdings in Newcastle City, other than the Telstra building and the old Waterboard building, but we have bought a major site, which is the dairy farmers. What are we going to do with it? I don't know. Okay. But it's a great site, and we'll figure it out one day.
Sure. Thanks for joining us today, Jeff.
It's a pleasure, Brent.
That's all from us. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll be sure to keep you updated throughout the year.